New Year's morning arrived in Phoenix with sun streaming through palm fronds and the scent of sizzling drifting from the kitchen. Linda's breakfast tacos burned slightly at the edges. Eric insisted on blasting the heater despite it being 65 outside, and Camille always arrived fashionably late, enough to earn affectionate scolding. The artificial tree blinked from a corner of the condo, draped in blue lights. I could trace each dent in the ornaments, each faded patch on the felt Santa Claus we never mentioned, as though silence was sacred tradition. My mother, Linda Salazar, swanned around in a silky turquoise robe, radiant and beaming. In her hand, a small navy-wrapped box tied with silver ribbon. She turned to Camille, my younger sister by 3 years, and forever the family star. "Open it," Linda crowed. Camille Vargas, perfect blowout and a pale yellow blouse, let out one of her practiced squeals before she'd even touched the ribbon. It was her signature move, a performance honed since childhood. She peeled the paper back delicately. Inside lay a sleek gold house key cushioned in black velvet. Camille shrieked. I felt my father's grin appear before even glancing over. "We bought her a condo," Linda announced, voice cracking like she'd proclaimed a miracle. Camille flung herself into their arms. I smiled, not from joy, but sheer habit. Then Linda turned to me, voice soft, eyes gentle. "You'll understand one day," she said. But I already did. My gift was a plain envelope slipped into my lap by Eric, my father. No fanfare, just paper rustling against denim. Silence pressed in, sharp as desert heat. I didn't open it right away. It lay there, light as paper, heavy as shame. A quiet reminder of what I lacked and how normal they wanted it to seem. Eric avoided my eyes. "Here you go." I traced the edge of the envelope but didn't open it because, even without seeing inside, I already knew what it meant. It meant they saw me the same way they always had. I was 10 the first time I baked my own birthday cake. Vanilla, too dry and slightly sunken in the middle. Linda helped, but only because Camille had a modeling audition and didn't want frosting smells lingering in the condo. That morning, I tiptoed downstairs early, hopeful maybe there'd be balloons, a card, something special. The kitchen was empty. No gifts, no candles, only the hum of the dishwasher and Linda chatting with Camille in the living room, brushing her hair for a headshot. That same year, Camille had a rooftop pool party downtown. Even neighbors we barely knew showed up with shiny bags and compliments rehearsed for someone else's child. By the time high school rolled around, I'd stopped expecting anything. When I graduated with high honors, Linda didn't come. Camille had a big casting call. I got a text that read, "So proud. Sorry we missed it. You'll go far." When I placed first in the Arizona State Robotics Championship, Eric showed up 20 minutes late and slipped out before the trophy photos. He had a lunch with clients. The next week, when Camille landed a 10-second juice commercial, they hosted a brunch. Champagne corks popping. They framed her ad like it was an Oscar win. There's one memory I revisit too often. Senior year, scholarship awards night. I'd worked relentlessly, juggled 2 jobs, maintained a 4.2 GPA, typed essays until my wrists throbbed. They announced my name for the top STEM scholarship. As I crossed the stage, I searched the audience. There she was, Linda, front row, eyes glued to her phone. When I stepped down, clutching my certificate, she looked up and said, "Well, at least she's good at something." This wasn't the time to speak. Not yet. But that moment was coming. I opened the envelope carefully, like tending a wound I knew would leave a scar. Inside lay a single sheet of paper. No note, no message. Just a printed job posting for a receptionist position at a mid-sized solar company. Entry level, hourly pay. Near the bottom, scrawled in Eric's sharp, blocky handwriting, pressing so hard it almost tore the page, were the words, "Thought this might be more your speed." I stared at the text until my eyes burned, fingers suddenly numb. No one noticed. Camille was still describing open floor plans and that dreamy rooftop patio. Linda was topping off her coffee, humming. I let the paper slip back into the envelope, folded it in half, then tucked it beneath my leg, not to hide it, just to end it. The condo buzzed with voices, but none of it reached me. All I could hear was the whisper of paper brushing itself, soft as secrets, reminding me I'd never belong here the way Camille did. They hadn't given me less because they forgot. They gave me less because they believed I needed less, because I'd always figured things out, paid my own bills, signed my own lease, answered the school nurse's calls myself. And maybe that's what stung most. Not the insult itself, but how certain they were when delivering it. They weren't trying to be cruel, just consistent. I hadn't planned on returning. But guilt wears the disguise of duty, especially when your mom calls twice in 1 week, using words like your father, hospital, and can't lift boxes alone. It wasn't the request that broke me. It was her syrupy concern, hiding a blade of accusation. So I agreed. For hours later, I pulled into the same driveway, hedge lines ruler straight, and stepped into air thick with lemon cleaner, burnt tortillas, and silence. Camille wasn't there. She's busy, Linda sighed, as though Camille's absence were somehow my fault. I smiled, nodded, said all the right things. By Saturday night, the list was done. This wasn't the moment to speak. Not yet, but it was coming. I opened the envelope as if handling a wound I knew would scar. Inside was one sheet of paper. No note, no message, just a job listing for a receptionist position at a solar company in Tempe. Entry level, hourly. At the bottom, in Eric's sharp, blocky handwriting, pressed so hard it almost tore the paper, were the words, "Thought this might be more your speed." I stared at it, my fingers numb. No one noticed. Camille was still talking about rooftop terraces and soaking tubs. Linda refilled her coffee. I tucked the paper back inside, folded it twice, and slid it beneath my leg. Not to hide it, just to end it. The condo buzzed with chatter, but none of it reached me. All I heard was the soft scrape of paper against paper, whispering that I'd never belong here the way Camille did. They hadn't given me less because they forgot. They gave me less because they believed I needed less, because I'd always managed. Paid my rent, packed my own boxes, answered the school nurse's calls alone. That's what hurt most. Not the insult, but how certain they were delivering it. They weren't cruel, just consistent. Hadn't planned on coming back. But guilt wears disguises, especially when your mother calls twice in a week, saying words like hospital, your father, and can't lift boxes alone. It wasn't the request that broke me. It was her syrupy voice layered with accusation, implying saying no would make me selfish. So I said yes. For hours later, I pulled into the Phoenix driveway, hedges ruler straight, stepping into air scented with lemon polish, scorched tortillas, and a faint hint of something burning. Camille wasn't there. She's busy, Linda sighed, as if her absence were my fault. I nodded, smiled, said the right things. By Saturday night, the list was done. Ever watch your sister get handed the keys to a brand new condo while your parents slip you a job listing instead of a gift? Stick around and subscribe because this story will make you question how far family favoritism can really go. I helped Eric carry storage bins from the condo balcony into the guest room. Listened to Linda complain about Camille's boyfriend. Sat through dinner where every conversation circled back to Camille's condo remodel. By 10 o'clock, I couldn't sleep. The guest room, the one I used to call mine, still held my old robotics trophies like proof I'd existed there. But the walls felt closer now, like they remembered every silent word I'd swallowed. Barefoot, I drifted down the hall. Eric's office door stood partly open. That alone was odd. He guarded that room like a fortress. Blinds closed, drawers locked, passwords on every file. Yet tonight it was open. Behind the filing cabinet sat his safe, small and gray. The door hung ajar. I should have shut it and left. Pretended it was a mistake, but something tugged at me. What do they keep locked away that Camille already knows? I knelt down slowly. Inside were rows of manila folders, tax forms, property deeds, bank statements. Some familiar, some not. I flipped through them quietly. Then I found it, a white envelope. On the front, Eric's sharp handwriting read, "To be opened upon death." My heart thumped. I opened it. Inside was a will, not the one they'd shown at dinner when Camille turned 21, where everything was split evenly. This one was different. My name appeared first. Next to it was a parcel number, a property I'd never heard of. At first, I thought it was an error. Then I saw the next page. A deed bought under my name, and below it, a signed bank authorization using my signature. But the slant was wrong. The R curled differently. Someone had signed for me. And from the bank records, it hadn't been just once. My identity was being used without me knowing. It wasn't only secrets they'd kept. It was that they'd built a hidden story and written me into it without my consent. I said nothing that weekend. At breakfast the next morning, Linda poured my coffee with forced cheer, asked if I'd found a real job, then launched into Camille's new podcast idea about wellness branding. Eric barely looked up from his eggs. I nodded, smiled, played my role. By noon, my bag was packed, and I was back on the road, citing work I didn't even pretend to explain. The moment I got home, I pulled my credit reports. Every account under my name, every flag I'd ignored. It didn't take long. My house buried in silence, was real. Purchased 6 years ago through a trust tied to my social security number. The address matched the parcel on Eric's hidden deed. But that was only the start. Quiet transfers appeared between family accounts, funds shuffled, and at least one bank form signed with my name, but in a handwriting that wasn't mine. So I called a lawyer friend from ASU. I didn't share every detail, just the documents laid out like evidence I still struggle to believe. She called me 2 days later, voice calm, but words precise. If you wanted to pursue fraud, you'd have a case. But that's not what you're after, is it? She was right. I didn't want revenge. I wanted answers and control. So, we started digging quietly. What surfaced surprised me. On paper, I was wealthier than I'd ever imagined. Not ascended. Not rich, but substantial. A house, an account I'd never known, and ties to a family holding company shielding assets during Camille's failed ventures. Worst was the lake condo, secretly mortgaged 3 years earlier to save Camille's business. Eric thought he'd fix it before the bank intervened. He couldn't. By then, the property faced auction. So I bought it, not as me, through an LLC, clean and legal. The paperwork took weeks, but when it cleared, I held the deed. For the first time, I owned something they wanted. It wasn't about the property. It was about ending history, about proving I'd seen every bit of neglect and chosen finally not to absorb it. They still didn't know. Linda texted about New Year's, asked if I'd be coming, if I'd bring dessert, if I'd heard about Camille's new business partner. Eric emailed me another job listing subject, something stable. I said nothing because silence, when chosen, isn't weakness. It's power waiting for its moment. And that moment was close. New Year's arrived. Same wreath on the condo door. Same chipped snowman mugs in the cupboard. The heater blasting air that stayed dry but never warm. Everything felt rehearsed. Camila stood there, already wrapped in new lavender cashmere, hugging herself like the room owed her applause. Eric lingered by the window, coffee in hand, eyes sweeping the space as if checking inventory. Linda floated between kitchen and living room, humming off-key, asking no one if the cinnamon buns were done. I placed my gift under the tree. A plain white box. No ribbon, no glitter, no tag. Let's wait. We went through motions. Camille opened a designer tote and gasped. Linda teared up. Eric chuckled. They toasted new beginnings. I nodded, waited. Then it was my turn. I handed Eric the box gently. He lifted it, surprised at its weightlessness, mild, certain it was nothing. Camille giggled. Probably socks, she said. Eric opened it slowly, more from habit than curiosity. Inside was an envelope sealed with crimson wax. He paused, then broke the seal and unfolded the papers. At first, his face didn't change, just a faint tightness. Then, color drained away. He read the first page again, slower. The notarized deed, my name, the property, the lake condo, then the second page, the forged signature, the legal warning from my lawyer. Eric's hand trembled slightly. Linda leaned closer. She was still smiling until her eyes caught the bolded words near the top. The smile vanished like steam off glass. Linda had no script for this. No way to process it. That told me how deep the secrets ran. No one had told her. Or maybe they thought she couldn't handle it. I stood there longer, letting silence stretch, letting it say what I didn't need to. They weren't going to apologize. They wouldn't explain. They wouldn't ask how I'd learned the truth. Some things don't need words. When I reached for my jacket, Linda flinched slightly, as though I'd raised a hand. I hadn't moved fast, just firmly, like someone deciding the scene was over. At the door I paused. Not for drama, just to look at them. Eric stared at the papers, refusing to blink. Linda shrank, inch by inch. Camille was silent, and I remained standing. "Just so we're clear," I said quietly, "I won't give it back. Not the condo, not my name, not anymore." That was it. I opened the door and let cool January air rush in. Sharp as truth. Clean. By evening, rain had begun. Gentle drops tapped the windows in rhythms only desert storms know. Quiet, then fierce, then gone. I sat in an old chair by the condo window, my condo, a blanket around my shoulders, coffee cooling beside me, no music, no voices, only wind hissing over stucco. The place wasn't perfect. Tiles were cracked, the AC rattled, pipes sighed behind the walls. But it was mine, and no one handed it to me. They'd try to bury it under paperwork and silence. Sure, I'd never look closer, that I'd stay compliant, keep my role, but I'd found it. And I wasn't giving it back. The quiet one, the capable one, the person who always fixed the mess but never asked why it existed. I didn't feel triumphant. This wasn't victory. It was release. Like finally exhaling after years of holding my breath. For a moment, I thought about calling someone, a friend outside the family, to say out loud what I'd uncovered, what I'd reclaimed. But I didn't. Some stories don't need witnesses. Some victories don't require applause. I didn't know if Linda would reach out, her voice thick with half-truths and careful sorrow. If Eric would email a news clip, pretending nothing changed. If Camille would send a meme like we were still close. Maybe they would, maybe not. I no longer cared. I wasn't angry. I wasn't looking for reconciliation. I'd drawn a line. Not from rage, but survival. And I wouldn't cross it again. The rain kept falling, steady and soft. I watched it slide along balcony rails, gathering on desert palms. Funny thing is, now that I own the thing they valued most, I don't even want it. But they needed to know I could take it. Just like they took pieces of me year after year, wrapped in silence and called it love. If you've ever left a room and never looked back, leave a singled. I'll know you were here. If you've ever fought to claim your own name or dared to break free from the roles others forced on you, drop me a comment below. Tell me your story. Let's remind each other that silence isn't strength unless we choose it. Stand firm. Ask questions. Own what's yours.